Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today I thought I would do a brief discussion on assembling plastic miniatures for hobby miniatures games as a sort of primer for anybody who may never have done that before. So I thought I'd talk about the equipment you're going to need and some basic tips really for cutting models off of sprues and making sure you don't cut yourself to bits in the process. So first of all, you're probably going to want something like this. This is a self-healing cutting mat, the kind of thing you can get in any craft store for protecting your tabletop really, and it's just useful to have something to cut on. You're going to need an X-Acto knife, or similar. This isn't an X-Acto knife, this is some cheapo knife that I got probably in a Poundland somewhere. Yeah. Sharp craft knife. You'll need one of those. Clippers. These are really important because these are how you're going to get the pieces off of the sprue. Companies like Games Workshop make these, but you can also get generic ones in hobby supply stores. And you'll notice, if I can get that onto camera, they've got blades that angle in here and then are flat on this side. Mine are getting quite blunt. I need to replace them really. These are the best way to get pieces off of a sprue. Finally, you're going to need some glue. I'm going to do a different video on different types of glue another time, but if you're assembling plastic miniatures, plastic glue is a good call. It melts the plastic, forms a really strong bond. So that's what I use for my plastic models rather than using something like super glue. So when you get I'm going to talk about Games Workshop games because as far as I'm concerned, Games Workshop makes it as easy as possible for this sort of game. Other companies aren't quite on Games Workshop's level when it comes to providing adequate instructions for putting together the plastic miniatures that come in the games. Games Workshop, they do a really good job of telling you how to do it. Other companies, it's more frustrating. I mean, if you've ever had to put together something like Kingdom Death Monster, that is a whole different ballgame and not the best place to introduce yourself to assembling miniatures. Games Workshop do a really good job of providing assembly instructions that are really, really clear. I mean, this is the first page from the assembly guide for the Shadows over Hammerhall board game, and it's like a thick, glossy instruction manual with color-coded sections. And what I wanted to show you was this first page. It's really important. Always read the first page of the assembly guides. It tells you what the different symbols mean, because as you're putting together your models, if we take a look here, you'll see they do a blowout and they show how the different pieces click together, and then there's these little symbols. There's a symbol there, there's a symbol there, there's a symbol over there, and you need to know what those symbols mean. So in this case, you've 3 shields. 3 shields means you have a choice of parts. This is really important to know. This is another one to really be aware of, the variant assembly, because you might be thinking that you can build all the different versions of the model that you see in the book, and you can't. You will have a certain number of parts, and you will have parts that you can swap out to get different looks for the miniatures, but you can't create every permutation of them. So yeah, really good idea to pay attention to those instructions, read them carefully, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure when you come to do the assembly, you're following the assembly sequence, because again, the way Games Workshop puts their models together, pieces often overlap to hide the joins. So an arm might go into a section here, and then a shoulder plate will go over the top and it will hide a seam. So you get a much nicer finish on the model. But if you put them together in the wrong order, you may not be able to get that arm on, or you may just find it difficult to glue it up underneath, or whatever. So yeah, just follow the numbering, follow the guide. They're pretty good, and they've started doing something really, really cool here. with the color coding, they actually show you where to apply the glue on the models. So you can see there's a yellow section here on this model. That's basically saying put a little bit of glue on there and push them together. Like I say, I'm going to talk about glue another time. Or the only other thing really we're going to talk about today is cutting models off of sprues. So yeah, look at the guide. Always look at the guide. Okay, so once you've looked at your instructions, it's time to start clipping out the pieces that you need to assemble your miniature. For this example, I will be using this frame from the Escape from Goblin Town, the Hobbit miniatures game. For no other reason than this just happens to be the sprue that I'm working on when I decided to make this video. Now, to get the pieces out, you're going to use your clippers. Now, if we look at the sprue, and this is the same for most Games Workshop sprues, you can see that the sections are connected to the frame by these little lugs here that look a little bit like dorsal fins or something. And they are all around the piece. Okay, and on one side they're like an angled triangle. They narrow in. And then on the reverse, they are, if you can see that, they're flat. So, to get those pieces off, you're going to use your clippers. Do not be tempted to use your knife. You may think you can just pop that down, come in here, and just start cutting on there. But if you do that, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, you're putting a lot of pressure on that blade, and that's increasing the chance that it's just going to suddenly snap and ping off across the room, hit you in the eye or something. But you're increasing the chance of it sliding and suddenly just stabbing you in the hand. And also you're putting pressure on the model because you're pushing down straight onto a connector point, and that's just putting pressure on the model, and on smaller sections that's likely to lead to a break. I mean, for example, this piece here, which has an incredibly thin section, which is like a rope. If I was to start putting pressure on the connector here, there's a very good chance that that's going to snap off, and then you've got to do a repair. So you don't want to be using a knife. You also absolutely do not want to be twisting. I've heard some people say that they twist and they don't have any problems with it, but don't do it. I mean, for example, this piece. Let me show you. Okay. So that's clipped at both ends, and it's still connected in the middle here. And it's quite tempting to think, oh, I could just twist that. Don't need to get in there. Just twist. I will actually do it because I'm brave, and this is for you guys. I wouldn't normally do this myself. Okay, so but yeah, just twisting it round. The problem with that is, first of all, you're left with, if I can get that to come out on the camera, a very ugly mark, which you've then got to file down with a little nail file or something, or scratch off with the blade of your craft knife or something like that, and it's not very nice. But also, again, you're putting a lot of pressure on the models, and while it doesn't really matter with something like, which is quite a big chunky piece of scenery here, but a lot of Games Workshop models have very, very thin elements. For example, the Skaven Blood Bowl miniatures have incredibly thin tails. Now, if you were to try and twist some of those tails off of their connectors, you're going to break those tails, and you don't want that because it just involves extra effort to try and fix them up using plastic glue or green stuff or whatever. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend twisting ever. I would only ever say use your clippers. And the way you use your clippers is, as we already know, they've got a flat side and that angled side. So you need to look at where you've got the section angling in and the flat section, and you need to put the clippers in there so they are flush with the model, and just clip. And you can very quickly clip all the way around. This is more difficult to do on camera than you would imagine it might be. There we go. That's all of them. And there you go, the piece is clipped out. You may have some mould lines along the edge, and you may have some very minor little marks where you cut the connectors. You can get rid of those by sanding them down, filing them down, or using your knife. But anyway, so yeah, that's the situation. That's how you get the pieces out of the sprue. Not by twisting, not by cutting, but by using the trusty snips. Once you've got all the pieces out, you can start looking at the next stage in the process, which is gluing it all together. But that's not what I'm going to go into in this particular video. That's all I'm going to do for now. I hope you've found this interesting. That's all I've got to say on the matter. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye bye.